to scream.
Coast to coast.
Jimmy's on that microphone.
Just like the Lord intended.
Saying what you're afraid to say.
Truth that can be amended.
Hey!
Unleash. Unfiltered. Unfazed. Unafraid.
Stream it.
Streamcast.
Hey.
Podcast. Every way.
From the house
of Lakey. The Lakey Towers proclaim.
This is the day the Lord has made. The show starts now in Jesus' name.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, there it is, the Jimmy Lakey Mass Choir, Brother Leroy and Sister Glory, and the whole choir singing for us. Isn't that glorious? It is exciting to be here with you on this glorious day the Lord has made. If you're listening in the future, we are broadcasting live, streamcast live, podcast, you got the whole thing. The originating date of the show is Thursday, the year of our Lord, 2026, 19th day of March, year of our Lord, 2026. So welcome to the program. Thousands of earballs will hear this show by the end of the day, at the end of the week, on the podcast, the streamcast, and the live cast. So wherever you're listening, if you're watching it live or if you're watching it in other places, like the podcast, listen audio only, welcome. Happy to have you here on the show. All right, let me go through some of the headlines. We'll talk to some of these with our first guest, R.P. Newman. Who's in charge in Iran? Anybody know? Somebody still calling the shots there. Evidently, 97 people were arrested for considering by the Iranian regime that they were working for the Israelis. So somebody's calling some shots somewhere. Also, about Karg Island and energy and what the options are on the table. There's also some Iranian tankers that are stranded out at sea. They've got Iranian oil and they're headed places, but the Trump administration is considering lifting sanctions on that oil to help the world oil and energy market. So we can talk more about that later on in the program as well. And then we'll get to that story, the deep state we talked about yesterday, in which story after story, day after day, we find out more and more about the corruption of the deep state, the swamp, the intel community, keeping 2020 info from Donald Trump regarding China because they didn't like his policies on China. That's a story that's out there. Also, that Trump was targeted by 4 FBI counter intel probes the Department of Justice is discovering. So the question becomes later in the program when we talk to Michael Letts, is anybody ever going to get held accountable? Every day, every week, there seems to be more stories about the deep state and the swamp going back to 2016, 2020, when it relates to Donald John Trump. And I guess the question is anybody ever going to get their hands swatted, their butt spanked, or get perp walked? I'm doubtful, but we'll talk to Michael Letts about that. Also, Michael Letts will be talking later on in the show regarding domestic terrorist attacks that are potential, especially from Iranian sleeper cells that might have been awakened here in the United States of America. So everybody stand by. Thursday, glorious day the Lord has made. Lakey here on the streamcast, the podcast, and the broadcast. Only a trained professional should try to say it that quickly and that often. Streamcast, podcast, broadcast. Everybody practice it. You practice it, Delilah? You do that as well. Streamcast, podcast, and broadcast. All right, glad to have you all here. It's a glorious day. And our first guest of the morning is very esteemed. We always enjoy having him because he's one of the bright guys that comes on the show and graces us with his wisdom, his insight, his expertise. And I sometimes feel like he's telling us something that no one else knows. I hope he's not violating any codes. I'm sure he's not. He's a trained professional. Please welcome author and extraordinary retired military combat Marine. Still a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. You've seen him on Newsmax, One America News. You've seen him on all of them. R.P. Newman in the green room, and I got to get a better bio. I got to read the bio just like he gave it to me. That way it sounds better. But yeah, I always feel like he's telling us a secret. So everybody lean in closely and hope your phones aren't tapped because maybe we're going to learn something new. R.P. Newman, welcome in, sir.
What's up, man?
Are you practicing gutting a deer? Or you coming after me there? I saw that.
You saw what? I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. I saw
Quit
it.
calling me. I told you. Stop it.
Got it. Oh, is that restraining order still in place?
Which one?
The one that you put on me, and then I put one on you.
Oh
Remember
no, I
that?
lifted that, but then I put it
Yeah.
back on.
It's quid pro
So
quo. Quid pro, yeah.
no, only yes.
Yeah. All right. RP Newman, Stacy's already chatted in the green room. She put all hearts across the screen there. I saw it pop up very quickly. So you have a fan base, at least one. At least one.
Well,
Maybe.
and this is a good thing. Of course, as we know, I loaned Stacy some money long, long ago, and she just recently paid me back. Unfortunately, it was in Philippine pesos. And I'm not going to the PI but that not Paris Island. I'm not going back there either. But the Philippine Islands. I'll discuss that with her offline.
All right. Well, you guys take that up privately. Let me ask you,
Yeah.
Karg Island, is that a place you'd like to be anytime in the near future? Karg Island plays a central role in energy and finance for the Iranians, and the United States has some bombs on it already and some eyeballs on it, I guess. Tell us about Karg Island.
Well, as far as going to Karg Island, I'm not going to go back because it smells bad. And I mean, because it's absolutely massive facility. 90% of Iran's oil goes out via Karg Island. And then the northeast corner, there is an airstrip, and then there are, depending on how you want to count them, as far as outer and inner and outer harbors, there are around 9 harbors as well on this island. It's not far off the shore of the Iranian mainland, and it is critical. Now, as you mentioned, President Trump directed via Secretary of War Hegseth to take out every military target on the island. And of course, the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, called the 31st MEU, out of Okinawa, Japan, lovingly referred to by Marines as the Rock, that's in southern Japan, just north of the Philippines, is inbound to the Middle East. Does that mean that the 31st MEU is going to assault Karg Island? No, it doesn't mean that. It means it's another option for the president should he decide to give such an order. That's what that means. They bring somewhere between 2,200 and 2,500 Marines. It's made up of 3 primary units. You have what's called the GCE, the Ground Combat Element, and that is built around, I think 31st MEU right now has, I believe, 3rd Battalion 1st Marines are the ground combat element. Then you have the air combat element, which has such aircrafts as F-35s and what used to be called the Cobra, now it's called the Viper, which is a helicopter gunship. We have V-22 Ospreys, CH-53 Super Stallions, and you also have the logistics combat element, and that's everything that is built around supporting the ground combat element, the GCE, and the ACE, the air combat element. The MEU is commanded by a colonel, and the battalion landing team, the BLT, is commanded by a lieutenant colonel.
So once these assets are in place, another choice, another option on the table, another pen for the president to be able to pull if he needs to. What do you think it would take for these Marines to be inbound and touch Karg Island? What are some possible scenarios outside of the Marines putting boots on the ground?
Well, as the president said when he talked about the strikes on the military targets on Karg Island, I think he said there was something like 90 targets. Now, keep in mind, a target might be an artillery piece, a truck. It might be a barracks holding IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps troops. It could be an aircraft. It could be drone launching systems. The Shahed drone is launched on a rail system that you cant upwards, and it's a fairly small physical footprint of it, and they only cost around $20,000 to $30,000 each, as far as the drone itself goes. So it's very cost efficient. So what would have to change for him to say, okay, land the landing force, to go into Marine Corps history from World War II? Well, he's going to have to believe that that's close to being his last option, or may in fact be it. He has said in the past he has called using ground troops in this war stupid or dumb. I forget the adjective, but he said that. But things haven't. It's funny how in war things don't always go the way you planned. The first one of the very first rules of war is uh, your plan A is not going to survive contact with the enemy. You're going to have to go to plan B. History tells us that, and we have plan B, C, and D. Is landing the landing force in the shape of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit on Karg Island, plan B, C, or D? Maybe, but it's in the mix somewhere. So he's going to have stressors. The president is going to have stressors applied to him in such a way that he says, okay, go ahead and pull the trigger. In any military operation, I don't care what it is, there is an element of risk. You put it on a 5x5 risk matrix, which is how I run my entire life. I'm not going to make a decision unless I see it on, if I put it in my mind, a 5x5 risk matrix. And you have to make the decision. It sucks being the commander in chief. He doesn't make, excuse me, no president has ever made anywhere near enough money.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get days off, and plus the president gives all his money that his salary was $400,000 a year or something like that. He gives all that to charity. But yeah, it's a very difficult job having to make a decision like that. We've already had some KIA, some killed in actions, and we've had around 200 wounded. Most of them are back on the job. Smaller percentage are not back on the job. This is the nature of the proverbial beast, and frankly, anyone who thought you know what, it's 100% that I'm just going to be able to win this war with air power of various types did not read the tea leaves very well.
Yeah. The voice of R.P. Newman, ground combat veteran, and also author extraordinaire. We'll talk more about his upcoming book on Iran in just a moment. But if you're listening to the audio portion, which is the podcast, thousands of earballs will hear it. That is R.P. Newman, and you can search for the books on Amazon and soon be able to pre-order his upcoming Iranian book. R.P. Newman, let me ask you a question. You talked about air superiority. We declared that a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people got their hopes up, and now they're starting to say, why is this taking so long? I have a question. Who's actually in charge in Iran? We've nailed the top three tiers of leadership. Missiles come through the meeting hall. But you continue to see these drone strikes. Israel hit something there, and then Iran struck in Qatar overnight. So someone's still making some calls. Somewhere. Someone seems to be in charge. 97 Iranians were arrested this week because they were suspected to be Israeli spies. Do you have any insight as to what level of government is actually functioning, or is anything functioning? It seems like someone's making some calls, launching some things, and they're doing it on behalf of the Iranian regime. What's really happening on the ground that you know of?
First, I believed you yesterday when we were smoking cigars at Casbah Cigars in Lafayette that you were in charge. So you tricked me on that. That apparently was disinformation, which is intentional false information, as compared to misinformation, which might be an accident. Okay, but well, Larijani had been the de facto ruler until yesterday or the day before, when he kinetically resigned. And but the supreme leader is Muqtada Khamenei. And everything that I'm hearing, both in OSINT, which is open source intelligence, and from my private sources, is that this guy isn't well. And that's why Larijani was in charge. Well, now he's gone. And who is in charge? Here's the thing about being in charge. If you decentralize your operations, such as the Iranians have done with the IRGC and even the MOIS, which is their intelligence, called MOIS, their intelligence service. It doesn't have to be someone in the very uppermost tiers of government being in charge and saying, do this, do that, and the other thing. They're operating largely independently. The IRGC is absolutely 100% on board with the program. and they're not going to roll over easily. That said, some very interesting things that I was reading this morning. regarding what the Mossad, which is Israel's intelligence service, not internal, they're their external intelligence service. What the Mossad is doing with some of the IRGC officers, they're giving them phone calls. And these aren't phone calls asking what they want on their pizza. These are phone calls saying, we know where you live. Here's your address. We know where you are right now. We know where your family is, which you should be protecting, not placing at risk. And if you continue along the path you have chosen and continue to support the regime, you will receive our personal attention. These are phone coming right into the guy's cell phone. And yes, the Israelis have this ability. They've got a lot of ability with cell phones. You can ask Hezbollah and Hamas
Yeah.
about, hey, Ahmed, it's for you. Oh, you've been disconnected along with your head, you know. So that's some of the things that are going on regarding targeting of who's in charge. Now, who's next to step up and be the de facto ruler? We don't have anyone identified yet. They might not have anyone identified. Would you want the job, Jimmy?
No, I that's why
No.
when you said you thought I was in charge. First of all,
Yeah,
I don't look good in that head thing going on. Baseball cap's fine with me, and I don't want a missile through my front door.
Well, you can go to Home Depot and get a new door. Of course, your house is going to be gone, but they get that too. They sell those sheds outside for like $50 or something. I don't know. It's a pretty good deal. But so that's the situation now regarding command and control inside Iran. What is going to come next in this war? Well, the Iranians are going to continue to fire at their Islamic neighbors, just about all of them that they can reach. And Hamas has publicly come out. This was very interesting, I thought. Hamas came out a few days ago saying, hey, we know you've given us a lot of money and you help us with a lot of our terrorism endeavors there. Iran, and in particular the Quds Force, and which is part of the IRGC. And we thank you very, very much for that. But you got to quit shooting at your Islamic brothers.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of interesting. Hezbollah, on the other hand, is on board. Hezbollah is not disarming, regardless of that deal that was allegedly made at the end of last June. Okay, with Operation Midnight Hammer, saying, "Oh, yeah, we're going to make this deal, and Hamas is going to, or excuse me, Hezbollah is going to disarm." No, they're not, and no, they didn't. That is not reality. That's fantasy land. I've been in this business for 47 years, and I am seldom wrong, but I can be wrong. One time I was trout fishing up on Troublesome Creek in Kremling, and I tried what's called a Royal Wolf Humpy, and they didn't want that, so I switched to a purple egg sucking leech, and I caught a huge trout. I remember being wrong that time.
Do you make notes of those times? Like, oh, there's one.
I do. Right here.
Right there.
In the old gray matter.
Yeah. You're writing a book
Yes.
on Iran, and I've been amazed kind of now that Iran's back in focus. And for 47 years, we've kicked this down the road, even after the Iranian hostages back that were freed under Ronald Wilson Reagan on Inauguration Day. I don't think there was ever any big retaliation. You had the USS Cole, the Beirut, the Lebanon Marine barracks. They've just been a problem for a long time. And I want you to kind of talk about the history here. Then we had Hillary Clinton that supposedly sold enriched uranium to the Iranians. You had Barack Obama who sent pallets full of cash over there, and then Joe Biden unfroze billions of dollars of assets as well. Talk about where we're at now. And I know you're writing a book on how we ended up here, but are all those presidents before Donald Trump to blame? Is it Hillary's fault? Is it Barack Obama's fault? How far back why are we here where we're at right now?
Well, first, let me say that I have to say hey to Arloa, who just wrote in and said something very nice. So her judgment clearly stinks. But so don't do that anymore, Arloa. Come on, we talked about that before, you know. But
Well,
and of course,
she says,
Jeff.
I'm reading it now. It says RP Newman is great. She's complimenting you.
Yeah,
And then she
yeah.
says, you have so many great guests, Jimmy. Erlo, you can compliment me all you want. I think you have fantastic judgment. Now, that thing about RP Newman, he's right. You got to.
Yeah, but look at it this way: you gotta look outside of the lens from Arloa's perspective. She also said the other day to me that I have great hair. That's a
Oh,
matter of perspective. It's
yeah.
entirely subjective, not objective. If I can think of another word with "iv" at the end, like I don't know, shiv. Oh, this is a Russell Groman elliptical bladed belt knife. Been around for centuries, I think, and I've had this thing for a long, long time. I take it places and do bad things to, like elk and stuff like that. I took it to Africa, and I cleaned something with it. I think it was a tigerfish. But anyway, this here's the problem with Iran. It's there, and it's being run and has been run since 1979 with some of the worst people that that you could ever imagine. And no president has effectively handled the situation. We have a president right now who's trying very hard to effectively handle the situation. And it came to a point where a lot of people who are much smarter than me, and that yes, that is a target-rich environment, said, you know what? If we continue to hold our position without getting after them in a physical manner, the risk is simply too high. And there we come back to the risk matrix again. And it kept on the risk matrix. The threat from the Iranian terrorist regime kept moving to the right, moving to the right. When you move right in a 5x5 risk matrix, you get into the red zone. Literally, it's color coded. You can look it up online or ask that AI dude. I don't know what his problem is sometimes, but sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. Who is that guy? I think it's Jay Leno myself, but yeah, but you have to look at, okay, here's a situation, and you have to make the call. President, commander in chief chose to make the call that we currently see ongoing. It's going to go for a while yet, while keeping in mind that although this war has been going on against the United States since 1982, when Hezbollah was formed in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. And one of their first major strikes was April of 1983 when they destroyed the U.S. Embassy with a van bomb, a VBID, vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, in Beirut. And then in October, the Hezbollah attacked the Marine barracks with 1st Battalion, 8th Marines in a PLT-18, and to the tune of 241 dead, October 23rd, 1983. And it's been going since.
Yeah.
And they have. I was doing some research yesterday, and this terrorist regime and their proxies have killed more than 1,000 Americans since 1983. More than 1,000. Many in Iraq. The uh, uh, the the IED program with some unique features to it uh, was designed inside of Iran by the IRGC Quds Force, and these weapons were brought in during the Iraq War. I know I was involved in counterinsurgency at this time, trying to stop them, insofar as training the Iraqi military and what's called their counterterrorism office, and we were somewhat effective, but a lot of these things got through. And this is what
Oh,
Iran has been doing. And they're big proxy fighters, which is very smart. Uh, Operationally and even strategically, it's very intelligent to do that, and they do it very well. And now we're seeing so-called lone wolf attacks. Be careful with that term. Lone wolf, it can be very misleading. People don't understand what's a real lone wolf. Oh, he was self-radicalized. No, no one is self-radicalized. That's another misnomer. It's like saying active shooter. Well, if he's not active, he's not a shooter. Yeah, but anyway, but another, but the book, which will be out hopefully later this year, I've had to add to it. It's called Iran's War of Annihilation. Then there's a long subtitle that goes with it. I already have a publisher. I don't self-publish. But this book is going to cover from 1979 to 2000 through 2026. So I've had to pause in chapter 9 and rephrase some things because chapter 9 was just about all done, and then all of a sudden we're at war. So I have to change that and have to add another chapter, which is going to be on Operation Epic Fury. And however it's going to work itself out, we don't know.
Now, you said real quick before we cut you loose, I know you got your grandkid coming over and go to the park with him.
That's right.
I understand. We got a heart out
Yes,
here.
we're going.
So
We're going over to the rec center, and I'm going to turn him loose in there. They got this cool thing that kids climb around on. So it's going to be nice today. Thank God for global warming. It's going to be gorgeous outside. We're going to then go outside to the park at the rec center, and have a good time. He's almost 3 years old.
So real quick, you said this is going to go on for a while. How much longer do you think that this is going to go on? Is there going to be a victory lap here in the next couple of weeks? Inquiring minds want to know, RP Newman.
They may very well. There could be a victory lap. There's more and more chatter and some OSINT reporting going on about that. The president may declare victory and depart the AO, their area of operations, so to speak. If he does that too soon, he will not have achieved his 3 primary objectives in totality. Key phrase for context: in totality. Some of the 3 big things he wanted was, number 1, no nuclear weapons program, period, forever. That's a toughie. Number 2, no ballistic missile program that can reach targets as we have seen. They had, I don't know how many they have left, but they had ballistic missiles that can reach Europe. And they were working on ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. They weren't there yet. They were working on it. And the third big objective, as very clearly and publicly stated by the president and throughout his administration, was no support by the Iranian regime for proxies.
Yeah.
We haven't achieved all 3 of that. We haven't achieved in totality one of them. Have we degraded all 3 what I call LOEs, lines of effort? We sure have. Are we there yet? No.
Yeah. Hopefully we will be there very soon. RP Newman, retired Marine, ground combat veteran, and a terrorism and homeland security consultant there. And RP Newman, I'll let you go do granddaddy things with the grandkid. If folks want to read any of your books or maybe start figuring where they're going to buy that Iranian book, where do they go?
Well, when it comes out, it'll be available, of course, on Amazon and all over the place. It'll be hardcover, 85,000 words, 10 chapters, illustrated with photographs as well, and some pretty interesting photographs, some of which no one will have ever seen before. This will be the first time people will see it.
I love your book on floral arrangements. I think that's fantastic.
That was one of my best. and of course, then there was, I wrote it under a pen name, but it took me like 9 or 10 months. War and Peace, and also The Shining. When I wrote those, under 2 different pen names, I really tricked a lot of people.
Yeah. I heard you even wrote that epic thriller my sister read as a teenager called "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret."
That's not true, but I did write 50 Yards to the Outhouse by I used a pen name, a pseudonym, Willie Make It, and but that was a classic. It's still very popular.
Yeah, that's my second favorite right there. RP Newman, look him up on the Amazon. Lots of great books. You'll be smarter for most of them, and the book on Iran coming out in the next couple of months. RP Newman, appreciate you, my friend. We'll catch you soon. I owe him a cigar now. probably more than one just because he puts up with me. RP Newman, thank you very, very much. All right, glad to have you here on this Thursday, the day the Lord has made, the 19th day of March. No, he did not write a book on it that I know of. I just made that up, Delilah. Delilah's like, can I get a copy of that? That sounds like a fantastic book. I don't think he did a floral arrangement book. That was jesting, Delilah. That was sarcasm. She's not real bright. Yeah, that level's not plumb. She's not. Yeah, you get the idea. All right, good to have you here, everybody. Want to remind you, we're gonna a half hour left of the show or so, maybe a little bit less. So in the countdown here, but don't forget, my friends, you can always stay in touch with us at the email info@jimmylakey.com. Info@jimmylakey.com. Let me also remind you about Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. If you're in that Interstate 25 corridor of Colorado, and you own a house, you want to own a house, you want to downsize, upsize, move in and state, out of state, you need to remember the name Sherry Cree. Her website is homeswithsherry.com. You'll see it there on your screen, homeswithsherry.com. When you talk to her, and you've got to talk to, when you're going to do real estate, don't just assume you're going to use the realtor that you met down at the flea market in your Sunday school class. You need to interview some great realtors because, listen, 70% of it realtors in America, they may have a beautiful card, but they may have a beautiful business card, but 70% of American realtors did not do any transactions back in the 2025 calendar year. They just had beautiful cards. They had a license to go on the wall, but they're not active. They didn't get any deals done. You want somebody that's active, that knows what they're doing, that knows what the market is doing, and that's what Sherry does. Again, whether you're in Boulder or Broomfield, whether you're in Denver or Dacono, whether you're in Longmont or Arvada, Parker, Aurora, you get the idea. She'll make sure you don't live next to Tren de Aragua there in Aurora. She can do that. If you're in Fort Collins or Fort Lupton, you get the idea. Littleton or Lakewood. Homeswithsherry.com. She knows as she approaches this that every real estate transaction you do can be that thing, can be a thing that creates generational wealth for you and your family. She's so generous. When she does a transaction for you, she takes a portion of her proceeds, donates to the charity of your choice. And just a fantastic lady. We'll talk to her on the show tomorrow. But go to the website, homeswithsherry.com. Just because someone handed you a business card or your neighbor used a realtor, make sure you interview and talk about that real estate deal you want to do, buying or selling. Talk with Sherry. Add her to the list of interview conversation and talk with her about what your dreams are, what you want to do, and then find out if it's fit. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. All right, great guest in RP Newman there and talking about what's happening overseas. I want to bring in our friend Michael Letts, law enforcement guru, and you could say hands on the pulse of a lot of things happening across America when it comes to criminal activity. His name is Michael Letts, investusa.org, investusa.org. And let's talk about the rising threat, or seeming rising threat, of domestic terrorism. Has Iran awakened sleeper cells in America? Are we going to see more of this? Are drones about to attack California, as suspected or was rumored last week? Let's bring in Michael Letts to the conversation. Michael Letts, good morning again, sir. How are you?
Doing great, Jimmy. Always a privilege to be with you. We thank you for the opportunity.
Always great to have you, sir. Let's talk about this. We heard about a week and a half ago that Iran had said sleeper cells wake up in America. We did see an onslaught of some attacks. Old Dominion University, a synagogue. We've seen the Austin, Texas shooting. We've seen some activity by people that seemingly are terrorists out there and fighting on behalf of Iran or against America. Is this a growing threat? Were these kind of one-offs? Are there sleeper cells still waking up here in America? I throw it all out there. Is California about to get hit by Iranian drones? Give me your thoughts.
Well, let's take it one at a time here. Yes, there are sleeper cells that have been awakened. We know we intercepted the messaging from Iran before we actually went in. It was the day before. We went in on a Saturday about 2.5 weeks ago. And on that Friday before, we intercepted that Iran was requesting all of its sleeper cells. We know they have over 1,000 in the United States to begin to be prepared to take action. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that they were going to be in the street in the next 10 minutes, or is it going to be, a matter of days? We do know that when we launched on Saturday, between Saturday and Sunday, we had 4 incidences in 24 hours, from everywhere from Austin, Texas, Cincinnati, DC, and others. Then it kind of took a little bit of a lull. Well, it took a little bit of a lull, Jimmy, because we decimated the leadership so substantially in those first few days. And people need to understand it's not just decimating the leadership, it's decimating their ability to move money around. Because, it takes money to be a terrorist. You don't have to pay off the families, but you gotta buy, the ordinances and stuff that you're using as well. So that put a little crinkle on things, but now you notice it's picked back up again because we think they have kind of uh, stabilize themselves to a degree. Now you remember, Jimmy, the initial uh, objective or hope was not only to eliminate their ability to make war, to eliminate chemical warfare. I mean, nuclear warfare, etc. Eliminate their funding, their terrorist network for sleeper cells. But it was also that it would give the Iranians a chance to determine their own future, to pour out in the streets and to take back their government and to allow themselves the opportunity to have a democracy or something that they could set up. You saw them pouring out by the millions initially, Jimmy. You remember the president said, "Hey, you want to fight for freedom? We're with you." Of course, we didn't define what timetable with you meant, but it took us about 4 to 5 weeks before we actually were able to get something together and start being of assistance. But in the meantime, Iran killed over the estimate is over 100,000 of its citizens for doing that. Why is that important? If you look now at what's going on in Iran, you don't see the millions pouring out into the streets and saying, "Hey, I'll be the next city council member. I'll be the next this or that. I'll help establish a new form of government." And that's very troubling. That's concerning. Do I believe that the Iranian people have lost their desire? Absolutely not. Do I believe, though, that they are cautious and concerned about how do you do this without getting yourself and your family killed? I think we're seeing that now, and we've got to encourage them to come out and step up, take more of a role. The same thing, Jimmy, quite frankly, we have to do with the Strait of Hormuz. We have to make sure that the oil still continues to flow, and the way that's going to happen is every nation that's getting oil, and that's vital for their economy, should be sending its own fleet down to escort those oil tankers through and to make sure that we keep that open. That's not really happening just yet either. They kind of figure America is responsible for everything. America can do everything, and that is certainly not where we need to be at. But how it affects us again locally, though, is we have had terrorist cells. Now you're going to start seeing more and more activation. You asked about the drones. Interestingly enough, this morning we've got 2 drones right now over D.C. area, where over the homes of officials that are part of the operations center for what's happening in the Middle East. And that's concerning. We obviously have fighter jets that are positioning themselves to be able to figure out what's going on there. So it's not just California. It is in the U.S. You say, how can they get them here? They can't fly them that far from Iran. No. You remember we've said all along that they have partnerships. The reason why I went from 100 sleeper cells to over 1,000 in this country is because they partnered with the cartels, the human sex traffickers, etc. We know that they've got great tunnel systems, even still today, Jimmy, on the border. We've tried to shut down most of those. They're not going across the water anymore, waving a big sign saying we're here, well, because we've shut the border down. But there still are attempts to get across. There was a lot of equipment at one point in time that was brought across. As you will recall, a lot of we're talking about very professional drones were supposedly being sent by our Congress to Ukraine to help in the fight with Ukraine. And you realize President Zelensky told us at that point in time that only 30% of what was being sent got to the battlefield. Now, what we found out, it wasn't our fault. It was Ukrainians, Zelensky, and the rest of them that took that other 70%, put it on the black market, took that cash and went and bought them beachside homes on the Riviera. But that having been said, those drones still got in the hands of not just the Al Qaeda and ISIS and all drug lords, etc., but they got moved obviously to Mexico, got passed on through. So there's a lot of that equipment we feel like now that it's here stateside. It would be very easy to launch, and you're starting to see some of it now. As I said this morning, first time we've had drones in what we call critical areas. That's where key components, key people live, unauthorized. Usually, hey, this is the neighbor. I'm putting up a little drone. My kid is over here playing, and he's seeing how the drone works. Now, these appear to be very professional drones that are in the air now. We're investigating it as we speak. But it's concerning, Jimmy, because even if they are not foreign or terrorist drones, it goes to show you how easy it is to get them up in the air and use it for nefarious purposes if that's your desire.
The voice of Michael Lutz, if you're listening later on in the day on the podcast version of the show, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, you get the idea. Thousands of earballs will either see and or hear this show, and we appreciate you doing that throughout the day. And some of you watch it live, some of you listen later, some watch it again later. Thank you very much, Michael Lutz, InvestUSA.org. Michael, another story for you is we talk about the drones in California, and then you're breaking a story here that I had not heard. That this morning there were 2 drones of I guess, unidentified source that were flying over residences of people that are involved in, I guess, the military or action against Iran. That's quite concerning. I want you to unpack a little bit more about what we know on that. And then also the White House security breach that happened over the weekend, as that's a big deal. We heard a lot about the drones potential in California, but I'd not heard about the drones over residents this morning in Washington, D.C. And a lot of folks didn't know that the White House security was breached over the weekend.
That is correct on both of those counts. And of course, first thing is, how do we know? Let's talk about California. California was speculation. What's happening on the East Coast on D.C. is visual, actual occurrences. And like I said, this has just been occurring probably right before I got on your show. So it's underway now. We have identified again through our sources that these are not just typical drones, and they could be military drones. But that's why we're in the process of pursuing and intercepting them as we speak right now. But yes, this is not something to play with, Jimmy. I mean, it is, you're talking about that. You're talking about the security breach we had at the White House. We don't get security breaches at the White House very often. And on this particular intrusion, people running their vehicles where they're not supposed to be, deliberately trying to get in. Fortunately, at this stage, we don't see that there was any IEDs or anything planted in those. But do you see how it sets the stage, Jimmy?
Yeah.
You kind of do little trial runs. You run drones up, see how far and how much you can get away with, and what are the necessary precautions that are put in place and the deterrents. Then you figure out how to work around them. The same thing with the White House security. You're really looking to do something, you run a couple breaches first to see what happens, and then you know where to target from that point. So the stage is being set, as we talked about before, that there are sleeper cells, and they will be, and they have been activated by Iran. Somebody asked me the question, what do we do about it? And my response is very simple, and this is what we're telling the administration. First of all, Jimmy, there shouldn't be any sleeper cells in America, period. The minute we identify them, it's time to scorch them. We're scorched earth policy. We don't just send you home. We send you home where you have to be carried. So we need to eliminate these sleeper cells instead of trying to be politically correct. You see, how did they get to have so many without having action been taken? Because they've been tied in with the Islamic jihadists, the Muslims. And, if you look like you're doing that, perhaps you're going after their religion. You have freedom of religion in this country. Now you've done it. Now you've done stepped on the wrong toes. And so in the past, we've just been kind of careful. Well, we'll just monitor. We'll just kind of keep an eye on things, but we're not going to take any action because we don't want to upset anybody. If we're going to keep America safe, Jimmy, we're going to have to start upsetting people. And that's just
one more question on this, and then I want to switch gears real quick before we depart ways. I talked with RP Newman earlier, right before you came on, retired Marine, a military ground combat veteran, terrorist expert. I talked about Hillary Clinton giving enriched uranium, Barack Obama pallets full of cash, Joe Biden unfreezing assets. Billions of dollars have funded this regime. And so obviously, at least these Democrat presidents specifically and or authorities, Hillary Clinton never president, thank God, they didn't seem to take Iran seriously. They were, in a sense, funding Iran while they said they were protecting us for Iran. Back on the homeland, I'm also afraid that Democrats are not taking the threat seriously. We have no funding for the Department of Homeland Security. We have TSA that was invented after radical Islamist terrorists decided to take over airplanes in 2001. We have TSA agents who can't show up to work and are quitting looking for new careers because Chuck Schumer won't fund them. I talk about Hillary, Barack, and Biden not taking Iran seriously and funding their problems. this lack of Homeland Security funding, this lack of funding the TSA, and even unwilling to deport people through ICE that are here for nefarious and or bad reasons. I mean, I have no doubt in Minnesota, if they went in and tried to get rid of a terrorist sleeper cell, the leftist Democrats would show up and say, "Don't take them. They're just the man next door. No, they're Iranian-linked terrorists, but they don't care." That being said, are we in danger? They're at war with us, but the Democrats of this nation are just at war with Donald Trump, and to heck with all of us and our safety.
Well, I'd like to say they're at war with Donald Trump, because then you say, well, he's only got 3 more years left. At some point in time, it ends. They're not at war with Donald Trump. They're at war with America and its Constitution and its values and principles. So this will go on long past the time that Donald Trump is in office. And what do they not like? They do not like our values and principles, Jimmy. We don't believe in stealing, okay? We don't believe in allowing our members of Congress and all our executive branch or judiciary to be enriching themselves at taxpayer expense. They love it. They get paid for it. They've set up a system through NGOs and others. We could spend time going through how all that works. But they've said all this, spent decades putting it together. They're not about to let you undo it, Jimmy, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. They're not going to let you undo it. And so that is why they're going to the Great Leagues. So putting even America and its citizens at risk. You know, hey, this poignant story here, Jimmy. Imagine being a Border Patrol officer. You're trying to make sure that we help identify these terrorist cells. You're worried about whether you're going to survive or not if you decide to confront one. And you're getting a call from the wife saying, hey, the power company says if you don't pay the bill by this afternoon, we don't have any power when you get home. Because you can't pay it because they haven't been paid by the government. Well, they're having to work for free. Why would you ask them to have that additional pressure put on them when they're trying to protect this country to begin with? That is just literally insane, and I think it's just repugnant that Democrats are doing that, and it's time we vote every one of them out.
Yeah, I'm getting frustrated to the point that you want to say, well, there's some reasonable Democrats out there. I'd like to find them at this point. Maybe Fetterman and maybe the person that lives down the street. But other than that, these people are puppets for the Iranian Islamic terrorist cult, is what they are. And they don't, whether they realize it or not. And it's all because they hate the founding of this country, and they would rather women live in tyranny. I mean, it's these people are becoming more and more disgusting. And hopefully the brand affects them in November, because these people should be nowhere near the perch of power. All right, you mentioned what we stand for, and a switching gear from domestic terrorism and the party that supports domestic terrorism, the Democrat Party. There, I said it. But we have story after story, Michael. This comes back to the deep state swamp. Intel kept in 2020 from Trump about China's involvement in our country because they didn't like Trump's policy towards China. There's a report last week that the FBI had 4 counterintelligence probes targeting Donald Trump. There was FBI agents that were coming forward saying, hey, the deep state's not playing nice here. Every day there seems to be more and more freaking stories about this deep state, the swamp that's out there. You and I talked about this, that there's grand juries enshrined, there's panels going to get to. Is anybody ever, I ask you this every few weeks, is justice coming for any of these people? Because the evidence is becoming more and more public. When are we going to see the justice come for these people?
Well, let me give you the strategy. We do have military tribunals in place. We have actually pulled together and got all the evidence and ready to move forward with the indictments. Indictments have already been issued in some. Now, who controls the military tribunal? The commander-in-chief is the only one that does that. And so the president, I believe, is taking the position that, okay, I don't want to release it too soon to where the American people say, really? I want them to hear enough of it to where they begin to ask the question Jimmy Lakey just said, are we going to do anything about this or not? He's trying to put up or shut up. And when he feels that there's enough pressure there, he's going to go ahead and move it. Now, where he and I disagree is I think there's more than enough pressure there. I think we should go on ahead and be moving them now. I'm assured that it will be coming within days. But, every time something else comes up and you decide to wait another day or two, Jimmy, that's a victory for the other side. I think it's time just to grab the bull by the horn and get it done.
We were told early on in the administration that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel were looking at grand conspiracy charges because that overlaps the statute of limitations. And I thought that's fantastic. But here we are now, a year and several months into the administration, and I haven't seen any charges on this grand conspiracy. Any word on what's happening in the DOJ? Are they moving slower than we anticipated under Bondi's leadership?
They're moving a lot slower. In fact, here's the goal and objective. I'm just going to wait you out, Jimmy. Besides that, if I can wait it out till the midterm elections and things don't go well for you, it's over. We won't be talking about this anymore. We'll be talking about impeachment proceedings and blah, 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 blah. And so, this way I can fulfill the commitment that, yeah, I'm with you and we're going to deal with these people. And then the flip side is just, yeah, I'm slowing it down. We're working it. Just keep it cool. And it's a horrible place to be to try to play both sides, Jimmy. It just really is, and it's not in the best interest of the American people, which is why I have said the only way that we get out of this mess is through military tribunals, because I don't trust our judicial system anymore. I don't trust a lot of the executive branch. They're just too deeply ingrained with corruption. I'm not saying maybe your top people, maybe you replace it with a good person, but think about how deep it goes. It's just only so much you can do in a couple of years, Jimmy, about finding out who's on your side and who's not. How are you going to get rid of them?
Yeah, it's baffling out there, and you can kind of think that the deep state has the same tactic as Iran. Let's wait them out. There'll be another administration, and it worked in Iran for 47 years. They just waited every president out, and I think that's what the Democrats. I think that's what the deep state Republicans, the Mitch McConnell types. I think that's what they do. Donald Trump will be gone, and those MAGA people will pipe down sometime. They're like the Iranian terrorists. They're just trying to wait it out until the pressure's off, the heat's off.
Well, the bottom line is what we just talked about, Jimmy. When there's so much corruption and you're making so much money on the side, putting into offshore accounts, et cetera, you're just not going to give it up. I mean, you're going to find every way to delay, to change the center of attention, to change the narrative, whatever you need to do. At the end of the day, to make sure that cash is still coming your way, you can stand up all day long and say how much you oppose it. You need to clean this country up, and I'm your man. But at the same time, just make sure you don't forget to give me my cash by the end of the day. Until we have people arrested, Jimmy, and the American public can see that people will be held accountable, we're screwed.
Yeah. Michael Letts, investusa.org. We got to get you back on. Talk about this Joe Kent guy. I'm fascinating. He was very much bomb Iran. Suddenly he's like, I can't be a part of this. And he was already being looked at for spying. It looks like the FBI is looking into Joe Kent. It's bad when you resign and you take a public swipe at the president. And the first thing you do is go, I'm going on the Tucker Carlson show. The people with principles in Washington, D.C. are few and far between. And we need more of them with principles, and we're screwed if we don't figure this out, Michael. We are really, really screwed.
The great thing I'll end with this, Jimmy, is there is hope, but it's time we all get together and make it happen, or we're all going to be screwed.
Yeah. InvestUSA.org. That's a great organization, keeping our law enforcement officers, both on the federal level, the local level, the sheriff, the deputy sheriff, you get the idea, making sure that when there is a shooter out there that aiming at the cops, that these cops can get home alive and safely for their family. And InvestUSA is helping to do that with the protective gear they need. Michael, give the quick push. How can folks contribute? What does it go to? And how do they do it?
They go to our website. That's InvestUSA.org. You can make sure that you contribute and make sure these officers have the ability to come home safe to their families. We just talked about how bad it is to try to be protected and then worry about where the light bill is going on. Add on top of that, I don't have the necessary equipment to keep myself safe to come home to my family. These are just issues that no cop should ever be having to deal with. So do what you can, support if you can, make any contribution. But the biggest thing I need you to do today, you see a cop, say thank you for willingness to serve.
Yeah. InvestUSA.org, InvestUSA.org. Michael Letts, I appreciate you, my friend. We will talk soon. I owe you a phone call anyway. Michael Letts, InvestUSA.org, InvestUSA.org. All right, a programming note. Jay Ratliff was busy today. He could not come on at 9 o'clock. We're working to reschedule him for tomorrow. I'm figuring it out on the schedule. I will let you know he's possibly going to move till tomorrow, but Jay Ratliff not on today because he had a personal schedule conflict. But if not, he'll be back next Thursday. So all of you Jay Ratliff fans out there, don't panic. Jay's okay. He just had something come up that he could not come on in the next segment of the show. So he'll be maybe on tomorrow. So if you tune in tomorrow, you could get Jay Ratliff, and that would be a great way to end up the week as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you about our charity work in Rwanda. Had somebody ask me, they said, they asked me about our budgeting, and I was honest with them. My friend said, how's it going, Jig? I said, it's been a bad week, honestly. Still a little bit of shortage there, but God always figures out how to provide. And I don't need to guilt trip you or shame you or preach a sermon. But if you feel so led that you would like to make a donation to our charity work in Rwanda, you can do that at riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. I was, matter of fact, you go to facebook.com/riverspromise. I put up a little child named Emmy. It looks like Amy, but it's pronounced Emmy. And that's just one of the kids. That is a little boy that is 6 years of age. Go to facebook.com/riverspromise. You'll see Emmy. Put that up last night myself. And he's a little boy that dreams of being a doctor, lives in a very poor situation, and he doesn't have a sponsor. Now, he gets to go to Legacy Christian Academy because we have a space for him. But to stay there long term, he has to have a sponsor. And you fill in any other name. I'll put some other kids out there, so I want you to put the faces to it. But Emmy wants to be a doctor. That's his dream. He's in our kindergarten class this year. Next year, he'll move to first grade. No, I think maybe he's in first grade now. I don't remember. But go look at the cute little kid. But the reason I point out Emmy is that he needs a sponsor to keep going to our school long term. You say, what happens if he doesn't get a sponsor? Or what happens if he doesn't go to school? Emmy, by the 6, 7, 8 years old, would probably be on the streets during the day, nothing to do. He would not have a school to go to. The government might try to find a school, but it may be a long ways. There's a lot of truancy, let's just say that, and just no opportunity. And by the time the kid's 6, 7, 8 years old, he'd be learning some very bad habits on the street. He'd be learning about panhandling. He'd be learning about begging, pickpocketing, anything he can. Everybody's there poor. So it's just a negative spiral. And Emmy would end up, by the time he's a young man, probably doing more crimes and more things that would just be problematic. Probably would end up in alcohol, drugs, cheap stuff to numb the pain of barely having a place to live and nothing else to do all day long. Can you imagine being a 10-year-old boy? Nothing to do, no school to go to? What are you going to do? And really no home. There's no television in the home. If you have a home, it's 4 mud walls and a thatched roof. I mean, you don't sit at home all day. You sleep there. That's it. You're just out. Nothing doing. And it ends up with a life of crime. We have stories, especially young ladies who have told that they know that without going to school, they would end up to try to get, no school to eat at. They'll end up in a life of prostitution. Girls have told that to us many times. They've written letters and said, I'm thankful that the girls around me, my peers that I grew up with, did not. There's Emmy right there on the screen. The girls will say, hey, listen, my friends had to prostitute themselves to eat. I got to eat at school. I didn't have to do that. Thank you. So I say that to let you know the real impact. So if you can make a donation, one of the reasons we're short in January, February, March, even April become tougher is because we have so many kids in our school that are not sponsored. And so we feed those kids. We're educating them without it. So whether you sponsor Emmy, he's available there on the screen. He's available on the Facebook page, facebook.com/riverspromise, or whether you just make a general donation. That's what you are helping us to do. The food bill is immense, and that's where we fell short, falling short right now. I know some of you have made little donations here and there. I appreciate those little donations add up to a lot. I know, dear Arloa, I saw your name come across my desk this week. Thank you, Arloa. Every bit matters. So I want to just put the face to it and let you know that if you'd like to make a donation today, you feel that little tingle in your heart, like, I can do $10. I can do $20. I mean, you're going, you know what? I got a couple of extra $100. Why don't you do this? Go to the website, riverspromise.org. Make the best donation you can. If it's $10, $5, if it's $20, $25, there are some of you. I do know that you say, you know what, Lakey, I want to help with the shortage. I got $500. I got $1,000. And that's, we're about $3K off if last I looked. So if you want to help us, boom, there's your opportunity. And just know that there's a lot of kids like Emmy. That's how you pronounce that name, A-I-M-E, Emmy. And look at the last name, fun last name. Try to say that, especially if you're not a linguist. Yeah, look at that last name. That's crazy. Ducey, I could say it, but I can't see it. It's so far away. All right, you get the idea. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. All right, time for the stolen meme section of the show. I got to wrap it up. We got to go. Here we go. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Democrats, Biden doesn't control the gas prices. Also, Democrats, Trump controls the gas prices. It's his fault. What do we say? If they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Look at this beautiful photo, but the text there says, I don't get drunk. I just upgrade to premium fun mode when with adventurous decision-making skills. Is that I think producer Chad has that as a tattoo, right? Oh, I'm just kidding. He's drinking Shirley Temples over there. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is from the Babylon Bee, so now we know. Kevin the janitor now is the most senior military official left in Iran. That's probably true. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. If you belong in this bathroom, that's a men's sign, and you follow my daughter or my wife into this bathroom that has a lady sign, you're going to need this bathroom, and that's the handicap sign. Everybody say hear, hear, and amen. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. I took my son to meet his real dad today. I can't. It's a visual. I cannot do it. I'm not responsible. This is not politically correct. If you're listening, I cannot describe it. I just can't do it. Let's just say there's a T-Rex involved. Maybe two. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from. There's the gong, my friends. China has been offended by that last meme about T-Rexes, and they have decided that we should stop stealing memes today. So, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the program today. I appreciate R.P. Newman. If you missed that was a great interview. Michael Letts, of course, long-form interview today. 2 long-form interviews. And Jeff wants producer Chad to know he's 0 of his 12 hugs today. And we had to talk to producer Chad yesterday about the length of the hugs and at which point does it get awkward. If you get 12 short hugs, but what if you get 6 long hugs? Does it all balance out? I don't know the law of averages here. But hey, we'll see. It's science, my friends. It's science. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. The website riverspromise.org. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace. I'm out of here.